Hi, this is Scott. Welcome back to another Hollinger team video blog. This is the much awaited, much anticipated compilation of 2025 Waterfront Market Report. So let's get into it right away. Starting off first off with Flathead Lake home sales. We have 22 active properties on the market right now, and that compares or contrasts to this last year's sales of 50. So really only about a 6-month supply of homes for sale on the market right now, but we'll dive into that a little bit more here in a minute. The other interesting thing about that is if you look at 2024, it was almost double the number of transactions from the previous year. So interesting uptick there, and we'll talk a little bit more about it here. So if we break that down a little bit further by price range, we look at under $1 million. There was 5 sold, believe it or not. I think those were all based for sure little cabins on the lake, probably with a small amount of shoreline, but they've all come and they've all gone. So we have active in the $1 million to $2 million of 4. 24 sold last year, so it's really, we're talking about a 2-month supply there 2 months on the market for everything that's remained for sale to sell. If we go to 2 to 3 million, we see 5 sales, or 5 active and 8 sales, and that's still a very good pace of being able to sell what's remaining in less than a 12-month time span. When we jump to 3 to 4, we're at pretty much about a solid year of 7 for sale and 6 that sold last year. So that's still a pretty good pace, pretty expectable for some seasonality to the market. We go to 4 to 5, that stretches out a little further. We've got 3 for sale and only 1 that sold last year. So it's you could say, well, there's a 3-year supply there, and maybe it will be. We'll see. If we go to 5 to 6 million, interesting, that's kind of apparently a little bit slower there. We stretch it out a ways further, and then from 5 to 6 million, there's nothing for sale and 2 sold. So that was, I guess, the strongest of those. And then the 6 million, kind of even 4 sold last year and 4 remaining for sale. We broke it down a little further because we thought it was important to talk about pricing, because that's really is the answer to the question. And the answer to the question is price. 50 sold on Flathead Lake, and the median price was $1.787 million. And square footage was, I guess that just shows you that they all were kind of in a normal kind of a size price or size square footage for a home there. They don't really compare well with when there's a difference in waterfront and stuff like that. The other thing that we looked at was the days on market, which was 99 days, which was pretty quick overall. And then the interesting number then that we'll talk about here shortly is 88.4% of the original list price is what they sold for. So it shows some softening for sure in those kind of things. We go to the Flathead Lake condominiums. If we go to Flathead Lake condominiums, that's pretty much been normal for not just the last 2 years, but the previous years like that. It seems like we've been on a pretty steady pace of the number of sales there, and certainly not very many for sale relative to the number that have sold. Only about, if you will, about a 3-month supply, and there's 1 pending right now. At the year end here, we do also Flathead land sales. Because there's so few, it doesn't make sense to do it on a quarterly basis, but there's 6 active, 3 sold last year compared to 6 the year before. So there's, I don't know if you can say the market's dropped a bunch or just the last ones remaining are higher priced and they're just going to sell slower. But we'll see how that develops as this year moves on. If we go to all the rest of the lakes, and there's 10 of them, there's some interesting, really pretty interesting numbers there. You can see in the actives where there's a couple lakes that don't have any active. We do have 18 though active right now, cumulatively on the other lakes. And the interesting thing that we look at there is there are 2 lakes that have 0 actives and only 1 that has had no sale in last year. So interesting things there. There's 3 pending, so a little bit year-end activity, maybe people anticipating of maybe building this winter and having something for this coming year. We'll see, or just buying and the idea of moving in and having something ready for this year. Overall, there were 28 sold in 25, and 27 that sold in 24. So pretty much a steady pace of what has sold those years on those 10 different lakes, not zooming up or down, but really more so a reflection of the number of properties for sale and how slim the pickings were. If we go back to the lake sales here for just a moment, we wanted to talk about the pricing part of it. And that is we compared the sales in the two counties of lake homes in Flathead and Lake County, and there were 74 home sales. If we break that down into those that had a price reduction, 31 of those 74 sold, and they sold for 89.6% of the original list price. So interesting comparison then with those other 43 that came on and did no price reductions and sold for 92.1% of their ask price. So literally you can say if you start out with the right price, you're going to do better than if you say, oh, we can always reduce the price later. Well, yeah, you can, but statistically speaking, it costs you about 2.5% to do that. We just thought we'd pass that on because I think it really is. That is the most important thing to do when you are putting your property on the market, is put it on at the right price. Better to sell it for the price that it's going to sell for now than wait a year and sell it for that price or even less a year from now. Last but not least, then we look at Flathead and Lake County's overall housing activity, just to kind of show what's going on for primary homes and land and things like that. So we have homes, townhome and condominium, and vacant land sales. If we look at the homes, we've seen an uptick in the number of sales by about 10%, so good steady growth there. Number of townhomes and condominium sales, that's up about 10%, and land sales are down about 4%, and that may be reflective in the lack of affordable vacant lots to build on and the price to build that has driven up the home sales just a little bit and the land sales down a little bit more. Thank you very much for tuning in to the year-end review for the Flathead Lake area waterfront sales. Appreciate those that are subscribing and liking these, and that comments that we get in. We really appreciate all that, and hope from the Hollinger team here that you have a great 2026.